Hello, I'm here with Michael Anden with uh, Mortal Worlds. Sorry, my brain, we was talking just before we went live, and my brain went blank on me.
Hey,
But Michael
hey,
Anden
Jerry.
from Mortal Worlds. Hi, Michael.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Thanks for having me on.
so we're not going to talk about your campaign to start with. As you know, most Americans believe that the world revolves around them, which
Yeah.
I think
Sorry
that
about
I think that if you live in the country that you live, you might believe that. So but we as Americans have some stereotypes about you UK guys.
that.
So I wanted to get some of those out of the way. I've made a list of questions while I was supposed to be working
Oh, yeah,
today, and I'm going to ask you some
yeah.
questions.
Hit
Okay.
me.
All right.
Go for it.
So how old were you when you first met the Queen?
I I first was aware of the Queen when I was very small, and I think when I first heard of the royal family, I was kind of convinced that they were more like Disney characters more than anything. I didn't think that they were kind of like real. I think that they were more like a kind of like a made-up story, because in many ways, they're larger than life, aren't they? The whole imagery, they're very kind of like a visual thing. I think that's why a lot of the world, loves to come to England. They want to catch sight of them. They want to see where they live and the Buckingham Palace and the guards and everything. So it's nice to see. But I guess in for their own, for their own lives, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and I suppose it's gets kind of like. Pretty boring day to day. They probably don't think it's a big deal. It's just a kind of big deal to people who see the best of it.
All right. So I know that Miss Caroline, the other part of your team, is in the chat. So I might put you on the spot right here,
Hmm.
and you can whisper if you want to. But
Hmm.
Mary Poppins, hot or not?
Well, Julie Andrews was pretty hot, wasn't she?
She was in her day. She was very, in
Yeah,
my opinion. At the
yeah. I think she
time,
was wearing clothes quite well.
yeah, at the time she wasn't because I was young. But now looking back, I think that she was okay.
That was something for the dads, I think, the casting there as much as anything else. It was appealed to children in a big way, but it also had a few nods and winks, I think, to the mums and dads as well. It was a great movie. I didn't see the newer version of the Disney. Well, who was it that played it? Was it Emily Blunt?
I think so. I didn't get to see that version either.
I think they were hoping for a huge hit with that, but I guess it didn't. They didn't knock it out of the park with the audiences as much as they hoped.
I think that the remakes are starting to lose steam, and I don't think that they're doing as well as some of these bigger studios imagine them to do because I think people are just fed up or tired with doing remakes, the same old thing. People are looking for originality.
Mm. I think that people have seen as probably as much of the usual landmarks of London as they can really stand. Uh, Mary Poppins pretty much had the lot. There's only so much you can really do. The London Bridge, Tower of London, and the chimney tops and all this kind of business. Once you've seen the first Mary Poppins, there's not much left to go really.
Um, why do people in the UK hate ice?
Hate ice.
That's the stereotype that you guys hate ice, that all drinks are served warm.
Oh, this is a weird thing. They say that we love our beer served warm and stale. Uh, which is not my idea of a party. I've got to say, most of the people I know, if they got served warm, stale beer or drinks without ice, they'll kind of turn their nose up at it. I don't know where the rumor got started. I imagine there might be a few people in this country who don't like to have fun. Maybe the rumor got, they like everything to be kind of like watered down a bit. Couldn't be further from the truth, Jerry. I tell you. We. Yeah.
Okay, so are you a Manchester United fan? You still with me, Michael?
But kind of like more fair weather. I don't
Okay.
feel follow us. See, when I was growing up, I was a fan, but they didn't do very well at all while I was really into football. And as soon as I kind of got big way, and my Indian football he started late for me to really.
Yeah, the the thing around here is that everyone over there is a Manchester United fan, and I was just going to ask to see where you stood on the stereotype. All right, the
Well,
next question. Go ahead.
yeah, I think that Manchester United are equally loved and also hated in this country. That's true to say.
The what's so great about tea?
Tea, you mean like tea with milk, the way that we prepare it? That's something that I think it's like a comfort thing, and you've got to be pretty young to be exposed to it before it kind of becomes a kind of a gross concept. I remember when I first tried tea, and I thought, why in hell would anybody drink this voluntarily? It didn't matter how much sugar you put in it; it still just tasted kind of like quite alien. Just didn't taste like anything that you're really supposed to imbibe. Maybe sort of medication. So I totally hear where you're coming from with that. I do drink tea, not as often as I used to, but I think it's definitely a comfort thing. It's kind of like for some people, it harks back to maybe their childhoods when they were first offered it by maybe their grandmothers or something, and it evokes warm memories. Probably that's where the popularity still comes from it.
So I'm from the deep south in the states, and here we drink iced tea. So it's I don't know how much iced tea that you guys in the UK would drink, but here it's just we drink gallons and gallons and gallons of iced tea. So and it's
It's growing
sweet.
in popularity. You drink gallons of it. I mean, is this like as a preference to something like a mint julep?
Um, I'm not sure, but we drink gallons of it. It's got I know each gallon's got 2 cups of sugar, so it's a lot. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
syrup.
that'll keep you going.
Yeah,
Oh, that'll spike your blood sugar a lot.
certainly. And then we wonder why we have so many diabetics in
That,
the
well,
states.
we do too here. Yeah, apparently it's a growing problem, but at the moment there's a big push. There's a big push for everybody to cut down on the sodas and on their, the candy, the sweets we call them here. And it's kind of a shame because I know that a lot of people they find there's a lot of comfort again in sugar. It's a cheap form of enjoyment, and now people are going to have to look further afield for their kicks because they realize it's not as healthy as they once were told. Uh, Back to Mary Poppins in a way, isn't it? A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
I guess it does. I guess all roads lead back to Julie Andrews, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so if you could Thanos snap an entire country away, would it be Ireland or Scotland?
Oh, geez, I've got no contention with the island of Scotland. I think that they're beautiful countries. If I could Thanos snap any country away in the world, I suppose it would be Antarctica, because I feel that everybody's become so kind of obsessed with how the world is ending. Maybe I thought if you just wished Antarctica away, maybe it'll just like start the flooding. Like you've seen the film Waterworld. It'd be
Yes, yeah.
like everybody would be just maybe just having to live on floating cities. We'd have to adapt a lot more quickly, and maybe we'll be partying up with the polar bears and everything. Maybe things will be okay. We just have to learn how to survive. So Antarctica, no one's living there much anyway. So I wish that one away.
But I saw Braveheart, and that goes against the narrative.
Oh, Braveheart. I know some people feel very passionately about Braveheart, but I've got to say, for me, it was more of a Mel Gibson vehicle than anything else. I think there was probably quite a lot of the movie itself. I know that the real person probably didn't have much of a relation to him, uh, but I think that's where most people probably, to be honest with you, get their information about him. And there's a lot of artistic license taken with history, I think, with those kind of Hollywood movies.
Yeah, of course there is. I see Caroline says she's an Irish Celt, and the book that I'm working on, is based in Irish and Celtic mythology. So maybe when it comes out, she'd be
Oh,
interested in seeing that, or maybe at least maybe
I
being a
think
beta reader or something.
that sounds pretty fascinating. Is it more kind of centered in historical fact, or is it more kind of veering on fantasy?
I've took a lot of artistic liberties with the Celtic mythology, dealing with
Yeah,
the Dantu. Caroline may be able to correct me. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. The Dantutanen and the Fomorians. So those are my main two
I think you're totally right.
protagonists
I'm
and
so glad you
antagonists.
said that. It's funny that when I first doing especially colored art, a guy called Simon Bisley. I don't know if you've heard of him as a British artist. Who I think he did Lobo comics in the 90s. One of
Yeah, I know of
his
Lobo.
where he's more well known in the States. Hmm. And so he was a terrific artist on Lobo, but he cut his teeth in comics in the UK. And there was a character called Slain in a kind of weekly comic we have over here called 2000 very 90s. And it kind of opened my eyes to Celtic. I hadn't really at the time, but I had no idea that until I read it that he had rich mythology there. So I found out about the Fomorians and the Earth Goddess and all this kind of business, and it was given such a beautiful, lavish kind of illustrative style as well. It was wonderful to look at, not just to read. And I thought, oh, I would so love to be able to paint like that or to draw like that. And I dedicate myself with it, no matter what it takes. I just want to be able to even be anywhere near as good as this guy. And uh, what happened really was that I kind of developed my own style. I never reached the peak of like what this guy Simon Bisley was able to do, but I guess that never really happens. You never a perfect clone of who you want to be, but you end up with kind of your own look, your own voice. So kind of like what you see with Mortal Worlds is is what you see. But yeah, it pretty much started off with that Celtic mythology kind of storyline of this character called Selene. Um, he had this special power apparently when he got particularly angry. He had his own kind of version of hulking out. It's called the warp spasm, and it was something where he would kind of like burst into this, hyper kind of muscular hypertrophy, where all of his kind of body parts, kind of swivel around, and his eyes would be popping out, and he'd be kind of like a real contender, almost probably to even defeat the Hulk. And this was only when I suppose the power of the ley lines, where he'd be kind of find himself caught in battle, he'd have all the power of the earth coursing through him. Uh, Usually that would be, I think, if it was like permitted by the Earth Goddess, if she saw him as worthy, he'd permit him to kind of like be as powerful as he needed to be. So all of that kind of stuff was beautifully painted, and I always wanted to be able to do something a bit like that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to when we get off stream here. I'm going to have to Google it and just kind of look it up for myself
Mm.
to see because I don't think that I know Lobo, but I've not heard of.
Oh yeah, you won't be disappointed, Jerry. Definitely
Yeah,
check it out.
I will. Um, all right, so this is going to be a multiple choice question.
Hmm.
All right, looking back on the Revolutionary War, what would you change?
The American Revolutionary War.
Yeah, that's correct. Would you guys change? Option A, would you change wearing big red coats? Or option B, would you change walking in a block formation?
I think probably the block formation wasn't the most advantageous to the British at the time. I think that we kind of assumed that the battle was going to be conducted in the way we were used to doing it, and we didn't realize that we were probably up against the Rebel Alliance. We were the Empire up against the Rebel Alliance, and you guys were a lot more kind of agile. You were nifty, and we were kind of like a little stuck in our ways. So we kind of paid the price for that. And but on the upside, now we have this beautiful transatlantic relationship. So I guess it all kind of worked out.
Yeah, I think that it did. I just I wonder. I mean, I wonder what kind of world it would be. I'm sure it would be. I think that it would be a worse shape because the bigger I think that a country gets and the bigger that an empire gets, just the worse it seems like that it
Mm.
becomes. So I think you say something about the floating cities earlier. So the smaller group of people maybe would be
Yeah,
a better system. So
yeah. Sometimes when things get too big, I guess they get a bit kind of cumbersome and bureaucratic. They kind of like become very much about controlling every little, every aspect of life, dotting every I, crossing every T. which is not how most people, I guess, want to live their life. They want most people to have people off their back, not more people on them.
Yeah, agreed completely. So this is the last question for you. To dispel any stereotypes that we may have about you guys over in the UK, have you ever been told that if you don't eat your meat, you won't get any pudding?
Frequently, actually. It was something that much to my kind of annoyance when I was growing up. My parents were my father was from Ghana in West Africa, and my mother was from Romania. And between the two of them, they kind of concocted quite a few different kind of cuisines, which I'm much more fond of now than I was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I just wanted to eat stuff that was traditionally kind of like almost tasteless, English food. The usual, roast dinners and fish fingers. I don't know if you have them over there. A lot of processed food probably wasn't all that good for me. They were trying to do me a favor by giving me a kind of a more varied diet. And this is the thing: in Britain, we don't have a very good reputation for our cuisine. For our cooking, we're considered to be quite, a little bit provincial. That's actually changed quite a lot. We are actually very much more outward looking, but I think the stereotype still holds, and there's still quite a few people here still like their just so, very.
Yeah, they're a very there was a lot of when I was looking up, things that might be stereotypical of you guys on the internet today. There was a lot of talk about the food, but I was thinking London, such a big city, that there's got to be, and I see these shows with all these world class chefs, so I didn't think that
Mm.
was a very good, thing to bring up. But yeah, that is one of the things that's out there that the food is, well, what we'd call bland, I guess.
Oh yeah, things have really changed in that respect. Now, I mean, a lot of people in this country. I never really liked the phrase, but a lot of people call themselves foodies here. I don't know if you've heard of.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah, so I think that a lot of people who kind of like really like their food now, they are really they like to say that they're as adventurous as humanly possible with their food. So it's almost like traditional English food doesn't get a look in. We're all very kind of like very adventurous now.
yeah. That's if you ever in the states around the South, go to New Orleans. I think it's the best food in the world. So if you're ever over here and you're in this area, hit me up. And if you're ever around, and we'll go to New Orleans. I'll take you to some of the best restaurants I believe in the world.
Oh,
I'm not a big traveler, but there's
oh,
some.
that sounds so cool, Jerry.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that sounds incredible. Well, I really like my spicy food, so I don't know if they got stuff in New Orleans, that's just like hot. I may be kind of overselling it, just how much I can withstand, the chili. But I'm a big fan of anything hot food,
yeah.
chili, all sorts.
Very Cajun. Any stereotypes you've heard about Cajun is probably true because
Yeah.
it's just going to where you get your food. Different people, different strokes for different folks. But there's
Mm.
some really excellent restaurants down there that
Mhm.
that are just it'll make you drive 2 hours to eat and back, just to eat. So, um,
My mouth's watering as we speak, Jerry. I've got to tell you.
all right, let's move on to your campaign. So I'm gonna share my screen so that let's see
Hmm.
here. Okay, there we are.
Hmm.
So it says a Immortal Worlds book one. So apparently there's more books in the works.
Hmm. Yeah, at the moment there's 3 books drawn, if you like, but only the first one is fully finished in terms of fully colored and lettered. There's another 2 books. The other 2 books have been inked and they've been flattered. Like the color, there's no kind of tones or gradations of value. There's no shading, but it's flat color like you'd get in like 80s comics. So I've got a flatter who does that for me, that aspect of it. So I've got to go over it and give it that kind of like textured look that you see there, like on that heading. Uh, my flat is fantastic. She's definitely worth checking in. Her name's Annika. If anybody's interested in getting some help with their colors, she can help with a lot with that. But with this first issue, pretty much I had the whole role of doing all of the color from scratch. So including the flat color, building it up in layers until you get what you see there. And I've been told that my coloring does have kind of a unique look, and that's probably a result again of me being a big fan of people like more of the painterly type of comic book artist, a more kind of European look, which would probably include that guy I was telling you about earlier, this guy Simon Bisley, who I don't know if you've ever heard of a kind of a fantasy artist called Frank Frazetta, but he's kind of the main guy who probably started all of this off, having a kind of really rich kind of palette when he was doing pictures of barbarians and dragons and all this kind of stuff. They really popped off the page, and I really wanted to kind of find out, well, what was Simon Bisley's influences and how could I actually learn from the masters themselves. So what you get here is my attempt, I suppose, to kind of ape that style.
Right here under the main heading, it says it might be my public schooling, but it says a super soldier discovers. Excuse me, I can't read. A super soldier discovers man's first ancestor is our final descendant, a being of ultimate
Mm,
evil. Can you describe
yeah,
that to us? What exactly
yeah,
does that mean?
yeah. So I mean, I'm a big fan of anything that is kind of like a high concept. I don't know if you remember, like in the 80s and 90s, especially, you'd get films which kind of like not so much based around the little kind of aspects of each character. They're more about a major idea. Let's say there's a kind of identity swap, like two people, like they swap their minds in the two bodies.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
sure.
you can sell the idea very quickly to people, and they can get it straight away. So, oh, that's kind of intriguing. So what I was looking for when I was first creating Mortal Worlds is, well, what could be my unique selling point? What can the story kind of what kind of story can this tell? And I figured, how about, like how we're all said to be survival of the fittest, which is kind of like behind the actions of everybody. Charles Darwin, he had this idea that everybody was below the surface of things. They were always trying to survive for the longest time. They're trying to ensure that things are best for their kids. And I'm thinking, game of all of that, some kind of ultimate survivor of all of who would kind of like free us all, who would be at the top of the pyramid. If we're all here now, and we're all kind of, but maybe towards the end of the world, with the ultimate warrior left standing, who's kind of guy who says, "I'm giving the flag here. I'm triumphant." I mean, you might say that might be a quite for anyone who says, "Well, I've everybody," but maybe same as someone we might imagine who exists. This would be someone so far away in the future, a long time to evolve. Someone who is far more kind of indifferent in kind of values, who's like far more interested in pure survival. Everybody else who came before him or manages to survive all around, they might say, "Oh, you don't need to actually this kind of crazy. You don't need to be dedicated to out survive and all learn from each other." And he's like, who you can see the guys getting punched. This kind of robot. This is like a suit of armor, and everybody's trying to survive the rampage of this being who's decided that he's got to be the kind of the final survivor of humanity, and that means everybody else must fail, everybody else must die. So he's a kind of like a terrifying being. And on the other hand, you've got this guy who you might say is humanity's kind of final champion. There's somebody who is kind of stepped forward to lay down the gauntlet and say, well, if you want to take out the rest of humanity just so you can say that you're the final survivor, you've got to come through me. And so this armored guy, you never actually get to see. well, maybe not until the very final issue, you never actually get to see who this guy is behind the armor. The armor kind of makes him invincible. You don't really know who's inside. Is it maybe some kind of some scrawny guy or something? Is it even something that's recognizably human? We don't really know. We don't really know until we get a few clues. But up until the end of the story, what we know is that he's many aspects physically superior to our hero. So our hero is called Cade Saiga. He does what he can against this being. He's got friends. He's got a kind of like a ragtag group of kind of buddies, war buddies, who are all saying, well, look, we got to try and take this guy down together because he's, this guy's gone insane with power. This guy wants to be, you ever seen the Highlander? The
Yes,
Highlander
yes.
movies?
I was thinking
Like
the same thing.
yeah, there can be only one.
That's correct.
So that's the kind of this is the kind of situation we're looking at.
It's just on a larger scale against all of humanity instead of a small group.
Exactly. But the aspect of it where it says that he's also our first ancestor. This is something that is an interesting part of the whole deal, which is that when he finally, well, it's prophesied that when this bad guy finally does defeat the final champion, that he's going to basically able to assume the whole power of all humanity to such a degree that he can turn the clock back all the way back, and he's the guy who actually kickstarts humanity in the first place. We never knew about him, but he's the guy who put us on this planet, and to him it's all a sport. To him it's all like like Predator, when
Yeah.
the Predator came to Earth and he was hunting Arnold Schwarzenegger and his buddies, his soldier buddies. To him it was just the thrill of the hunt. It wasn't about anything like any kind of grand plan or anything like that. It was just for the buzz of the hunt. And so this guy is very much the same. So once he considers that he's done with humanity, what he plans to do is just kickstart it all over again. Well, maybe somebody else will come forward who can defeat me, and he figures, I doubt it, but the previous guy wasn't able to do it. Maybe the next one can. So
It's
eventually,
almost like the one punch guy. He's bored because he beats everyone in fighting so easily that he's looking for that challenge or that one guy that can defeat him.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly right. So it's kind of like a simple story. There's not a huge amount of plot. It's not a very complex plot or anything like that. It's pretty much kind of like two main adversaries, and they're kind of like they're fighting for the fate of the world, really.
Okay. I see that there's several other characters here. Can you go into? I can't get them. When I
Hmm.
click on it, it won't enlarge.
Hmm.
So can you go into detail about
Hmm.
who we have here? I see this female character on the right.
Yeah. So like don't know if you can see there's this guy, the the female character in the white, or the one in the front with the kind of the
Well, I was
blade.
referring. I was referring to the one in the white up top
I
in the
think
white.
so you've got like a female character next to the guy in the red at the front.
Yeah.
She's kind
What?
of like running out at you. And
Yeah, I see her as well. Who is she?
one
I
in
think.
the white is actually, yeah, she's actually a bad guy, or a bad girl in this story. She is the wife, or kind of a strange wife of the guy in the red, who is the champion guy. Her name's and so the main guy, Tiger, and they're kind of a married couple, and has kind of into this who believe this is the end of the only way they're going to come out of this okay to embrace the dark before it. She believes that death is coming, and it's better to go out, come to the shadows, if you like, rather than be defeated by this terrible monstrosity that has kind of like befallen the earth. Because I think that once that happens, if he manages to reign supreme, people aren't just going to be able to just die peacefully. She believes that we're going to die a terrible death. The world is essentially going to burn, and she wants everybody to basically say, we hold our hands up, we surrender. Please let us just go into the night peacefully. And she wants to be kind of seen as a kind of an angel of death for humanity. Really, she wants to everybody to say, um, if we accede to you to be the champion of the earth, we will leave peacefully. We will leave the earth, and maybe we'll just like float off into space and have nothing more to do, with life on Earth. And this is maybe something that she's hoping will be a kind of a good offering to this being. He may say, "Yeah, okay, that's fine, as long as you all acknowledge that I'm the top dog here." But a lot of other people are saying, "No, this is crazy. We can't give way to this being. We can't give any kind of ground to its demands, because after everything we fought for, after countless generations of struggle and everything we achieved and sacrificed, we're not just going to give up the earth without a fight." And she's kind of like, you just don't know what you're dealing with here, because she's kind of like, she's in military intelligence. She knows what this being is capable of, and she knows that people are kind of kidding themselves if they think that there's any kind of bargaining. This thing is in it for the kind of the thrill of the hunt. It's in it to wage war on all of humanity. It's not there to make peace of any kind. And she tries to convince her husband of this as well. And he's like, no, this, we have to fight. It could actually turn out that she may know more than we realize in what she's saying. That maybe everybody just needs to just try and escape, get the hell out of Dodge, get away from this being, and possibly just go to the other end of the universe if they can, which may just be endless darkness. We may die out there, but at least we'll be away from this kind of creature that just has no mercy. It's got no kind of redeeming features. And some people, they think, oh, maybe if we can talk to it, maybe if we can kind of bargain with it, he'll go easy on us and this kind of stuff. But for the main good guys that we have in this story, they're like, we don't buy that for a second. This guy has got to be stopped. And a lot of them fall quite hard, under his sword as well. This final being, it has great weapons as well. It has ancient weapons, access to these things, which is actually through trickery of time, which he actually has some control over. He's left these things lying around across the earth. He has special weapons which have been lying around buried for many millennia, ready for him to seize, just in case anybody rises up against it and says, we stand against you. We're going to defeat you. Humanity will go on, and we're not going to be continuing this cycle of you hunting us down. But it's going to be harder than that.
Yeah, so she's already basically given up and has surrendered to this creature, this guy. What about this? I'm assuming the lady with the sword in the smaller picture, and the lady in the sword standing here by this breach in the wall. That she's the same character. What is her?
She's the character. You can see like she's on the front of the left of the other picture. So her name's Cara Flynn. And she's a comrade of the guy in the middle there. She's a comrade in this military. They're super soldiers, I might have mentioned. So he's a super soldier, part of this kind of government program, secret government program, which was designed to. Well, they believed the government knew that this being was coming, so they kind of thought, well, maybe we can hedge our bets. Maybe we can nip this in the bud, have a team who can repel this force, before it brings the end of humanity. And so there are a few variations. These guys, they're called the Fifth Legion. They're kind of like they're the last bastion of humanity, who are able to, or at least hope that they're able to contend with this being, and their own kind of skills, their own kind of weapons. They have firearms.
Well,
and what's interesting about these guys actually, including her, is the weapons that they are able to use. They're able to dump them or retrieve them at will into dimension. So, like whenever they're not, it's almost like they can draw them out.
On the bottom right,
Thing
I
that I
see
was
that.
going to say, these weapons that there is a downside powerful. They do trade the life force. Use them. Mm-hmm. I lost the
The
image there.
weapon
Yeah.
on the bottom right, that's reminiscent. Are you still there? Oh yeah. I'm
Yep.
sorry. Let me get it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. On
Yeah.
the There we go. On the bottom right, the that weapon reminds me of the way that it's situated there. Reminds me of a futuristic type of Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some backstory to that, or?
Yeah. Yeah. So you see, like this kind of Excalibur type weapon. What it's doing there in that, where it's like you can see it is kind of like moored into this stone. What it's doing there is that it's actually trapping that being while it's anchored in there. It's stopping that being from kind of like manifesting in the earth. So you may think, well, why is this guy about to retrieve it? Why is this guy kind of like about to try and take the sword out if it's going to release this being? It's kind of basically been uh, resting in there for all of this time. Uh, Maybe by its previous, the previous warrior who managed to not destroy it, but at least managed to kind of take it out, take it down, and get it to banished it from humanity. And this guy, Cade Saiga, who's going to end up having to try and defeat it, uh, at the beginning of the story, he's actually the one responsible for freeing it in the first place, releasing it into the world. But the reason why he does that is because he's been blackmailed. He's got military superiors who have told him that this blade needs retrieving, and they've got their own designs to use it. And if he doesn't bring this blade for them, they're going to threaten his family. And so he believes them. He thinks that if he needs to save his family because this is a high military operation, he doesn't really know what they need this blade for. He just knows that if they're that desperate for it, that they figure he's the only one who's got the power to retrieve it, to claim it. Nobody else has been able to basically previously take the sword from this stone. He's got to take it out and bring it back to them. That's what they told him. And then your family will be safe. We'll return your family to you, because they've abducted them. They've been missing for some time. And so when he does take the blade out of this stone, it's literally all hell breaks loose.
I got you. So it's a redemption story for him, almost. Trying to stop the destroyer of
Yeah.
worlds. What is the?
Yeah.
Is this a futuristic timeline, or is it an alternate universe?
I would say that I don't really make mention of where this takes place in terms of, let's say, relation to this Earth. Much in the same way as Star Wars. It doesn't tell you whether the galaxy that it takes place in really exists far away from this Earth. Does Earth itself exist in the same kind of like timeline, or is it just like a fantasy world? Does it actually not exist in the same kind of universe at all? So with this mortal worlds, I would say, yeah, it's a fantasy world. It's not the Earth that we know. It's not specifically not Earth, but it's obviously there are many trappings in it. There are kind of few tropes in there where we have wizards, we have sorcery, there are occult powers as well as science. There are light speed vehicles, so it's got a lot of kind of like science fantasy elements to it. But there are also quite a few things that are recognizably just normal life as well. So like Cade Saiga himself is just kind of pretty much a normal dude. He's not simply he's not a Terminator himself. He just wants a peaceful life, but he's just found himself at the heart of this kind of this battle, for the fate of the Earth, simply because he was a volunteer who ended up becoming the first of these enhanced warriors, and he's still kind of one of the most powerful of them.
I got you. It looks like it sounds like a great story, Michael. Y'all have done an excellent job putting this together. How big will this book be so that your backers,
Hmm.
the folks that are signing up, for your email list
Hmm.
here, how big a book
Hmm.
or would you expect them to get?
What I'm planning to do with this book, it's going to be a 48-page book. I've got a kind of like a shorter proof copy, which is like half the length, but the 48-page book, which I'm nearing towards completion already, full color, and I'm figuring what will be added to it is also an book. So there's also a short video, kind of a flip through the book. It shows kind of how I came up with the a lot of the designs, spacecraft, stuff like you articles in there as well about up the kind of what we wanted to see. A few things that we think is missing from a lot of comics recently, movies that we really like to see return. Element of kind of high stakes and a lot of things have been a little bit too serious, and this is getting back to kind of like some good old fashioned fun as well.
Yeah, I think the entertainment. I made a tweet not long ago. Anything other than trying to entertain your audience just dilutes the entertainment value of whatever it is
Mm.
you're creating.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so I think that we have a lot of dilution going on. I think we need to get some pure entertainment in our
Oh yeah.
economy, in our comic book economy here. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it looks great, man. Where
Oh, thanks so much.
just go ahead and plug it and plug your Twitter account, and then I guess
Yep.
we'll end it
Cool.
about
Yeah.
right here. Uh,
Oh, cool. Yeah. So my Twitter, anyone wants to check it out, you're very welcome. It's at Michael underscore Anden, and there you can see there's a lot of retweets as well from fellow Comicsgate creators who I'm big fans of. There's up to date artwork, concept art, kind of new ideas that I've got forming every day. And this is probably the best place to see if you want to see what makes me tick. And Caroline, there's new content every day, and hopefully there's some quite funny stuff as well. The stuff that I see throughout the day, which makes me laugh or think, well, this is just crazy. But I guess everybody kind of like needs to catch sight of this and make their own minds up. But Comic Skate is the main focus of my Twitter activity these days, and I've made a lot of amazing friends, over the course of my, following this movement, and I hope that long continues. And yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great movement. Comicsgate. It's really getting back to like we was just talking about. It's really getting back to the pure joy of making a great book and just having people
Mm,
that are fans of your work and
mm,
just enjoying that book because
mm,
it's a great book. You're not trying to push a message. You're not trying to push some kind of agenda. You're just making good
mm.
quality entertainment. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of
and
people.
I'm open to kind of also any suggestions that people might like to see further down the line, or would like to see incorporated in the book. If there's kind of like certain tiers they'd like to see with the campaign, it's going to be launching in May, so there's a good little while yet. I would love to hear anyone's suggestions. Anything that anyone wants to hit me up about. I'd love to hear from you all. So yeah, it's the pre-launch pages on Indiegogo. It's called Mortal Worlds, the comic, and also I'd like to mention that I'm also a part of Comicsgate UK, which is kind of like a recently launched kind of addition to the movement. And there's a lot of great guys there and girls with some very interesting campaigns. Some beautiful artwork. Includes Peter Gilmore, who is an Umbrella Guys artist as well for Case of the Littlest Umbrella. Amazing artist there. And yeah, we all kind of cross promote, but we're very keen on continually promoting American Comicsgate and all over the world as well. We're a growing movement, and we're taking over the world.
I think that we are. I think that we are, Michael. I'm going to leave a link to your pre-launch page in the
Mhm,
description of the video for people who are watching it. After the live
mhm.
stream. What about what date are you planning on launching? Do you have a solid date? I saw on the page it said May. Is that a rock solid?
I'm figuring very early May, so maybe before it hits double digits, something like the 5th, the 6th of May, sometime around then. But I'll be announcing that pretty soon, pretty shortly. Within the next few weeks, there'll be a hard date for that set as well.
Okay, so we need to get back together after you launch and just
Hmm.
discuss, the campaign and your tiers
Oh
and
yeah,
the perks that you put together, and maybe you'll have some more
yeah,
artwork up by then, on your uh,
that'd be
Indiegogo page. So,
that'd be fantastic, Jerry. I'd be honored. I'd love to do
yep,
that.
yep, I would be honored to have you on the show again. So,
Hmm.
I think we're just going to end it right there. Is there anything
Hmm.
else you want to add?
Just want to say thanks for everybody for listening in. I do have also a YouTube channel. It's called Channel 0x. It does include content about also updates about the campaign and special imagery, exclusive imagery from Mortal Worlds. But it also has popular counterculture. It's got pop culture reviews, kind of me and Caroline's take on stuff that's going on within the worlds of things like Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, all of that good stuff. Some pretty hot takes on all of this, and uh, our ourselves into the world's gotten itself into this situation where they kind of got to save them.
Yeah, I think I've lost you, Michael. Are you there?
I think I lost you there, Jerry.
Yeah, I think we lost each other. So, yeah, it's a bad situation that we're in, and I think
Maybe.
Star Wars is the big shining example of just incoherent, just writing that I've seen
Yeah.
in a long time. But it is what it
Yeah.
is. Those companies on those properties, and they're theirs to destroy. I guess if you want to,
Hmm.
that's pretty strong, I
They
guess.
they
But in my mind, it
they
destroyed something that I love, and
they seem to have kind of no remorse about it. They don't want to hear the fans. They don't want to hear that we want them to succeed. We want them to do right. We want them to do right by these properties, but they don't care to hear it because they think they know better. And whereas Comicsgate believes that it's the customers who know better, and that's and they're able to prove that. They are able to put their money where their mouth is. But that's apparently not good enough for many at the likes of Disney, and that's a shame. But we will fight on. We were most interested in finding out what people want from us, and we will do our best to provide it.
well, Sweetcast is doing amazing. He just launched his campaign, and Cecil is also doing amazing. So, yeah, there's something to be said about
Yeah,
Confiscate and what people want. They want to be
they're
entertained. So,
terrific. Yeah, it's like everybody's really excited about this. A lot of people were trying to claim, oh, Comicsgate come 2020, it's going to wind down, but it's actually just going, climbing ever higher. Because I think that what people have started to awaken to is that the main focus is on entertaining the audience and listening to the audience. And that's where the excitement is, and hopefully that's where the big money is going to be for everybody this year.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I'm going to let you go at this point, Michael. So, like I said, I'm going to link the pre-launch page in the description of the video, and I'll also link your
Hmm.
YouTube channel so people can find you
Hmm.
there as well.
Thanks so
So,
much.
have a great day,
It's
Michael, and
amazing.
we'll talk again.
Thanks so much, Jerry.
Yep.
All the best to you. Catch
Yes,
you up
sir.
soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.